All right, and welcome back to another episode of Reboot Review. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
And Drew, it's been a while, but we're back with 4 more movies for the Halloween season of Reboot Review. And, we're going to take 4 movies from the past that were, I guess, original Halloween classics to some extent. Doesn't mean they're necessarily good movies.
The selection's kind of out there, but I think we did that on purpose.
Yeah, because it's like, we could do like the Halloweens, we could do the Friday the 13th, and we could do the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but I think it's better to do like, maybe little hidden ones that they still tried to reboot just to milk that money machine, Either way, we are doing the reboot to the 1979 When a Stranger Calls, and we are doing the 2006 When a Stranger Calls.
I could have at least driven myself, Dad.
I don't want you driving home alone this far so late at night. Wow.
You must be Jill. We were so thrilled to find a babysitter at the last minute. Come on, I'll show you around.
Your house is amazing.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Where are the children?
First bedroom at the top of the landing.
Just make yourself at home.
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
Now, interesting fact, the reboot of When a Stranger Calls does not star Selma Blair.
No, that is the thing. I was not looking forward to watching this. Well, I was looking forward to watching this reboot because you said Selma Blair was in it, and nothing against what's her name? Nothing against Camille Bell. But yeah, I guess I just went into this thinking it was going to be Selma Blair, and then we started, and I was like, "Where's Selma Blair?" Interesting enough, though, the reboot is directed by Simon West, who's already been on one of our podcast episodes because he did the sequel to Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and he did obviously Lara Croft Tomb Raider: Cradle of Life.
So, needless to say, we were excited. But I guess, do we have to talk about the classic one first?
So we can talk briefly about the 1979 When a Stranger Calls, and all you really have to know about this is that Fred Walton, the director and the writer, this was a short film originally, and which is essentially the first 20 minutes of the movie. So they did a short film. It was just called The Babysitter, and it was just about the babysitter getting the phone calls, and then I think it ends with her opening the door and the cops there, and we find out that the kids are dead. And that short film was so successful that they decided to turn it into a feature-length film. And it's very obvious that's the case because the first 20 minutes of the movie are one thing.
Well, I don't think that's obvious. I think
it's obvious when you watch it. Because
it's not obvious this was a short film. I don't think I had no idea what this movie was about when the first act ended. I did not know that it was a short film that they just like added on, because what you do is you would just take the short film concept and expand it, like they do in the reboot where it all takes place in the house and it's all about the babysitter. This one, I was surprised to discover is about something completely different.
And you would just like you said, you would expect them to kind of take the 20-minute like first act and extend that into a feature film.
I don't even think it was 20 minutes.
Well, it kind of, it's like the first like 15 to 20 minutes of the movie is really just the babysitter stuff with Carol Kane. And then after, she answers the door and the cops are there, the whole second act there is no Carol Kane. It's 7 years later, and really we're just following the detective who's now a private detective who's going to go out and try to find the guy, the killer, the guy that killed the kids.
The killer escapes.
The stranger. Let's just call him like the stranger.
He's not a stranger, though, because we learn all about him.
We learn all...
So...
It should have been when this man with a really traumatic history who's from England calls.
Well, no, that's the thing is, and that's kind of like the biggest kind of insult about this movie. And I don't know if we should just go out and say opinions. I didn't like this movie very much. A big part of that is because it's not about When a Stranger Calls. Like the whole title is misleading. He's not a stranger. He doesn't call. Like they don't even make that like a gimmick that he like calls people to like harass them. It's like that's a small part of like who this guy is. He ends up being this extremely dynamic but extremely boring character.
He's definitely more of a stranger in the reboot.
Exactly.
To the point where they don't even like show his face until the
like
final
the
shot
end,
when he's like driving in the car.
He's got like those scars, and it's just like, oh, some guy.
Tommy Flanagan.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
I think so. It sounds correct.
But yeah, and even with this 1979 version, I guess really if you cut out the second act, it would still be accurate to say, or to give this title When a Stranger Calls, because the first act is Carol Kane, the third act is Carol Kane, but then the whole second act, there's,
It's nothing.
like you said, it's just like a backstory of the stranger, of the guy.
It is an almost completely separate arc, and it's flawed because it has the three most incompetent characters as like the crux of the whole narrative. Because I mentioned this when we were talking about it. You have the detective who's the new main character, the new protagonist. I think he's a detective that, like, when she was calling panicked, Carol Kane was calling panicked, he was like, oh, it's fine, it's probably nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it was that
all,
guy.
all the cops in this franchise are so dismissive. Anytime a woman calls and is like scared, he's like, oh, just relax, it's
I don't
fine.
think it's all of them. I think it's just the main one. It's the main cop in both circumstances.
I know, but even like in the reboot too, that's like they use that as like a plot device to like try to keep things tense, whereas like she's calling for help and then the cops are always dismissive.
Just no one believes her.
Yeah,
but then the cop becomes like the new protagonist.
Yeah,
and he's just really bad at what he does, because there's the moment where I don't know how into the details of the plot we want to get, but the target, the killer's new target,
yeah,
he meets up with her. He tries to use her as bait, like out like in the city, like I think early evening.
Yeah.
The killer doesn't bite, so he walks her back to her apartment, which the killer has been to, and says goodnight. I'll be in the area off and on for like the next few hours, but then like I don't know. We know he knows this killer, and we know this killer infiltrates houses.
Yeah.
And like uses that's part of his gimmick.
Yeah.
The detective doesn't even do like a scan around the apartment. No. He just like says goodbye, and like, so
he's got his ice pick and he's just ready to pick locks with his ice pick.
He's just so excited to pick those locks and like do nothing else. He can't even like.
Well, he's got such a personal vendetta against this guy, and it's all because he saw what he did to those kids 7 years ago.
And I think that's it.
But it's been 7 years. And he's like, I'm gonna kill this guy, and it's like,
well,
okay.
It's because the inciting incident is solid because it's at least like the killer escapes.
Sure,
and that's rationalized.
But why does this private detective have such a personal
that's flawed
attachment to like this killer to the point where he wants to kill him? And like you said, if he knew so much about him, if he was really obsessed with him, then he would know all his moves.
And he doesn't.
So when he drops off, or when he follows like the girl from the bar, the woman from the bar who gets harassed by our stranger earlier. You would expect him to already be in the apartment, whereas I knew it was he was in the apartment already.
Big surprise! Like there's the shot like a few seconds later where he's hiding in the closet.
Yeah,
the cop was right fucking there.
And you said like we get like kind of a backstory, or we learn more about this stranger, but I would argue that we really don't, because they play like an audio recording of him getting like treatment, and he just doesn't like to be touched. And then really the only moment where he kind of explains who he is when after we've revealed that he's already snuck into the woman's apartment, and then he grabs her and like pushes her against the wall, and he's just like, I just want to be your friend.
Well, that's like,
why do you? That
brings us to the second of the three incompetent characters.
Mm-hmm.
The antagonist is played up to be an insane killer.
Mm-hmm.
He is not very insane, and he is not very good at killing people, or even like.
Yeah.
What does he do when he like just pushes? He gets the girl. He gets his victim where he wants her, and instead of doing, what does he do? Kills with his bare hands. That's his whole like MO. I want to be your friend, and then he seems like incompetent.
Yeah, he doesn't even kill the rest of the movie besides the kids in the opening.
He never kills again.
Yeah, in the first act. And even in the third act, where Carol Kane thinks that he's back, and like she gets the phone call, and then she rushes back home, and then her husband with the great Jerry curl, he's like, I got the shotgun next to the bed. And then when she goes back to bed after checking on the kids, the stranger's in her bed, like ready to attack her, and then we reveal that the husband was in the closet. So he put him in the closet, and you expect the husband to be dead, or at least torn to pieces by the guy's bare hands. And no, he just rolls out, and he's just like, and it's like, okay,
oh my head.
So he just knocked him out. So what is this really? I think he just wants a friend. This stranger, he doesn't really seem to.
Well, that brings us to like the second part of that, where he's not a very good killer, and then at the same time, he's not a very good insane. Well, character, because there's no like diagnosis, or there's no even like hypothesis. No character even like suggests like what might be wrong with him. It's like they play that disturbing audio recording.
Yeah.
And I'm doing air quotes right now when I say that. And then he just like harasses his victim at the bar in a very boring scene with no tension.
Well, he also has that scene where he's like naked in like the bathroom for like the Jesus Saves like it's like where homeless people go to like
I forgot about that because it's never like there's no connective tissue
well, I think
for any of his other scenes. Like, why is that in there?
I think they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to say that this stranger, this killer, has like remorse for his actions because he's like mentally unstable. So really we're seeing
that did not come across.
It's supposed to be, I guess, like a character study of like a mental patient, and I can only assume that they added this on.
This is like a babysitter, like stalker or slasher, and now we're doing like a character study on an insane killer
for a movie called When a Stranger Calls. Like, he really only calls in the first and the third act. But I think that they added this on because this comes out in 1979, and this is like a year right after, you know, Halloween. So I feel like they had this great short film. They're like, okay, that's gonna be the first act of our movie, and then after that we'll just follow this, like, the killer who's escaped, just like Michael Myers, and we'll have like a private detective, or, you know, in Halloween's case, Loomis. Somebody's like after him, kind of hunting him down until eventually like he leads back to, I don't know, his first original victim.
But the kids are just some random victim. The only people he kills are just random targets. There's no motivation.
Yeah.
Nothing about this connects back to itself. And real quick, before we get too sidetracked, I just want to mention the third of the incompetent characters, which is the victim.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how this woman survived as long as she has.
Yeah.
Like we both just looked at each other at some of the decisions she was making, like, early on.
Yeah.
We don't need to go too detailed into it, but the big one is this creepy guy who's been like stalking her, harassing her, and then got beat up at a bar that she, for some reason, feels remorse for.
Yeah. And she
leaves the door open to answer her phone.
Yeah.
After he has been nothing but like completely off-putting. Turns her back and essentially lets him into her apartment, and then is not like surprised when he like comes in. It's like, oh, what are you doing in here? Like, so these are the three characters we're dealing with here. Yeah. The victim who's just begging to like have something bad happen to her, the killer who can't actually harm her, and then the detective who essentially goes out of his way to get her in trouble.
Yeah. Using
her as bait. Like, if the killer had actually struck when he was using her as bait earlier in that like night, he would have like been successful. The cop cannot like catch up to him. He has no athletic like abilities. He's got his lockpicks and that's it.
that chase scene where he chases him at like the end of the second act.
We were just waiting for him to give up.
Yeah, he's just like, the killer's just like throwing plates and dishes at him, and he's jumping across tables, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is like.
They're not like characters who are like, you know, like larger than life or whatever, like Michael Myers. They're like two schlubs they're like the two worst people to be in these situations, stumbling through the plot. And what's like confusing is the first act is pretty decent.
Well, yeah, because the first act is a whole different movie. It's a short film.
But that's the thing, is like, even if it's two different like plots or like stories, you expect like a similar kind of like direction behind it, because it's not like they're swapping directors.
No.
Everything about the second act is completely different and off-putting, and then everything in the first act is just like really solid, and then by the time you get to the third act, when it comes back to Carol Kane, Carol Kane, right?
Yeah,
you're just like relieved, but then at the same time they're just stitching the plot together at the end. Nothing about what happened in the second act really connects back to the third act, especially when it comes to the villain.
No,
we're supposed to learn all this stuff about him, and they could have you could just fast forward through the second act, and you would be completely in tune to what's happening and what his like character motivation is. It's very simple if there is one at all.
Yeah, and plus, like, when we got to the third act and we finally saw Carol Kane again, and she had kids in her own life, I was like, all right, now the movie can continue. Thank God. We're back. Now we can continue this. And what's interesting, before we talk about the reboot, because I think that's enough about the original. Let's get to the reboot. But before we get to the reboot, there is a made-for-TV sequel where Carol Kane and that detective both come back, and it's called When a Stranger Calls Back. And in this movie, and I only read a synopsis about it, but Carol Kane now plays like a professor at like a college, and there's another girl that like is attending her college or something.
Is she famous?
I don't know. And she's also a babysitter, and she starts getting harassed by somebody, and she goes to Carol Kane about that. because she knows that she had that experience back in the day. So Carol Kane starts kind of like giving her advice on it. But then apparently Carol Kane like calls the detective back and she goes, hey, I need you to come back into town because this is happening again to another girl. And then she like trains the girl how to like hold a gun and how like to defend herself and yada yada yada. I guess
what does the detective do?
He's also there. He's just kind of investigating. I'm sure he's just running around out of breath. But I'm pretty sure the final act of this made for TV sequel is they're like facing off against like the killer, very similar to like the reboot. Where they're facing off against the stranger, if you will.
Like in a house that the girl's babysitting.
Yeah, something like that. And I think Carol Kane ends up getting shot in like the head or something.
Jeez.
And she's at a hospital. But anyway, they successfully defeat the stranger. I think Carol Kane wakes up like in the hospital next to like they both wake up from their comas, her and like the girl. And I think the girl's name is Julia, that plays the new babysitter or whatever. But
what happens to the new stranger?
He gets killed. He gets defeated or whatever. So. All right, so now let's get into this one, A Stranger Calls from 2006, Simon West, right? Now, obviously, this is going to take the first 20 minutes of the 1979 version, and they're going to extend that into a feature.
Stretch it.
And they're going to stretch it. So, yeah, this is more kind of a by-the-books approach to this, like, type of material, to this concept.
It's essentially just like the babysitter and then the calling, harassing, the calls coming from inside the house. I don't even think in the original urban legend the kids die. I think it's just like some creeper is just like calling and harassing.
Well, I mean, interesting enough, in this 2006 version, the kids don't die.
True.
So they kind of do this thing where they open the movie with, I guess, the ominous audio of an attack. Like, you know, we're not this town that we're at that Simon West has put us in.
Do you want to talk about the carnival?
Just really quick. There's a carnival going on. There is, what is that rig? It's like it's what drills like oil into the ground.
An oil pump.
An oil pump in the backyard of somebody's house.
There's so much happening in such a small square footage of this town.
Yeah.
There is an oil pump, there is a carnival, and there is a murder occurring.
Yeah.
The carnival, and it's all like someone's backyard.
Yeah, and we don't even know who's being murdered. And honestly, with the beginning and the end, it's really just like it's just like voiceover kind of exposition, like from like news reports and stuff, like explaining how dangerous this stranger is,
setting up the killer. Yeah.
But in regards to like what the stranger actually does when we spend time with him, like, I mean, what does he do? He calls a couple times and he's just like chilling on the ceiling of the kid's bedroom, but he never even like kills the kids. And even when he says like, have you checked on the kids in a while? Like in the first one, he says that because he's already killed the kids and he's trying to get the babysitter. In the second one, he says that just to scare the babysitter?
I don't know. We'd have to actually like think about it. It might be because that's where he's hiding. So that's where he's gonna like ambush her.
Yeah.
And I don't think she ever does go in there until she does see him, right?
Yeah.
I really don't remember.
Well, this is also interesting too, because I was wondering how you could even do this concept nowadays with like cell phones and with like blocking people, because, you know, we're in the age of the block. So if somebody's creeping you out, you can just like unfollow them.
Well, this was before that, I believe.
I know. This is like the perfect kind of time in 2006 where you had flip phones, but you still had landlines.
Yeah.
And then you had the fancier landlines where you could like, you know,
they were so sleek.
Yeah, it's mobile, and she clips it to her belt as she's like walking around, and there's multiple mobile phones because there's one in the guest house and one in the main house. And then she thinks that like her boyfriend or like friends of her ex-boyfriend are like crank calling her on the landline, but she's got a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did they get the landline number?
Well, because her cell phone would have caller ID.
Well, her cell phone would, but the fact that she's like, for me, it makes sense in the 1979 version because it's just one landline. And if she's like a high school girl, Carol Kane, she'd be like, oh, I'm babysitting at this person's house, I'll call you later. And you always had like your best friend's numbers memorized.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I'm calling from like, you know, the house that I'm babysitting at or whatever. But in this one, she's just getting frank phone calls from the landline and she's just assuming it's her friends messing with her. But I don't understand how her friends get that number or how her blonde friend gets into the house. I know she says that the garage door was open, but the doors are all locked and they're armed. She's got the security lock on the door. So even if you get into the garage, that doesn't mean the garage door.
Does it show that the garage is armed?
But the door to the garage must be armed because
are you assuming that, or is that established?
I'm assuming that.
Okay.
Because why would every door be armed into the house? but the garage door isn't. And
Well,
I'm
the
not
windows
talking.
probably aren't armed.
No, they definitely are. That's the whole point about having a security system. Is it's like a net that goes around the house.
This was 2006.
But these are also rich people, at the same time.
I don't
So
know.
it's very confusing across the board, I would say.
Do we want to go ahead and get into our thoughts, our opinions on this in general?
Well,
Or do we want to ease into that?
here's a good standpoint. All right, in 1979, when a stranger calls, the first call from the stranger happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Happens at the 4:37 mark. In the 2006, when a stranger calls, the first call from our stranger happens at the 22-minute mark. 22:31.
They gotta stretch.
They gotta stretch it out. So then, what happens prior to that first call to set up that call?
There is some
right?
decent stuff happening. I was not bored during the first act of this reboot.
She's training to run, and they say some kind of throwaway line where you always have to be ready to like push yourself and run, or know when to run, or. But she never really runs.
She does.
She does, but she doesn't like run away from the guy. She's just running in between the guest house and the house.
It's fine.
Sure, but I think they're equating running to like fighting, because she puts up like a fight with the guy in that
Or
third
like
act.
you could just say like general endurance, maybe physical
Okay.
endurance. Like I that wasn't lost on me. That like I kind of forgot about it, but when you
Yeah.
brought it up, I was like, okay, that's a fine connection.
Okay, and then she's got something going on with her father, played by
Clark Gabriel,
No, it's not Clark Gabriel. It's his name's Clark Gregg.
whatever.
Who's Agent Coulson, right?
Yeah.
From Avengers.
And other
he,
stuff.
He's driving her. He's taking her over to the babysitter's house, or that she's gonna babysit.
Did you just blow past the breakup?
Well, I was gonna get to that in a second.
Okay, because I think that happens first.
Okay, so all right, we'll go back. So yeah, she's in high school, and like she's mad because this guy kissed her best friend.
Her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend kissed her best friend, and like they're fighting. But really, that's just there to have something later when she's getting the crank calls.
It's
and
just
she's
some drama,
thinking,
yeah.
But it's not like
it's a high school babysitter. We need some high school drama.
yeah, but it doesn't like contribute anything to the plot besides just having some beats later, like to stretch it. in the second act.
It helps with like subplots and like minor character beats.
Well, fine. If you want to talk about this guy, I love the fact that he's tried calling her 100 times. And
Well,
she
the guy
keeps saying no.
the guy kind of sucks. The guy is really just there as a prop, but it does
Yeah.
add a little bit of something with her and the because the guy. I'm sorry, the girl who kisses her boyfriend is also her friend.
Yeah,
I think it's her best friend,
and her other friend is Tessa Thompson.
but she doesn't come into.
She doesn't come into play except
Yeah.
for that one really weird edited shot where she's sitting on a bench and her knees are one way, and then they cut back to her for reaction, and her knees up in the air. And then, like, if you're watching the video of this, like, I'll put it in obviously, but if you're just listening to this is just like a weird continuity cut in the Tessa Thompson scene. But either way, all the friends are getting together. They're gonna
Well,
go.
if you're gonna talk about like the way that the film, like any mistakes in the film,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I want to go back to mistakes that were in the first film really quick. There is so much, I think, like actual lighting equipment,
Yeah,
like just
in the
shots
Yeah.
for this, and you can like try to like throw some up if you can. But
Yeah.
like, there's even one exterior shot of the house where there is literally just a crew member standing and watching the
Yeah.
shot happening.
He almost hesitates to stand up at first because he doesn't know if they're rolling or not.
But then he just gets up and he just crosses his arms.
Yeah. He
It's
folds his
so insane that
Yeah.
this is in like because like I've heard of this film before.
Yeah.
Like this film is mentioned in like scary moments. At
Yeah,
least the
and
Carol Kane.
that's the reason why I wanted to do it on.
And it's
Reboot.
so bad.
Yeah.
It's so like weirdly bad.
I assumed that this was going to be more of a classic because of the fact that it was on like the AMC
Yeah.
top 100 scary movie moments where like the phone's coming from inside the house when
The phone's coming from
or the call's coming from inside the house. But really, like when that happens at like the 19 minute mark, I was like, oh, is that the movie?
I was just more
Like,
confused.
what's going on?
Like we let it finish, and then like
Yeah.
as soon as it like starts getting into Act 2, we're like, oh, I wonder what this movie's about because it's not what I thought it was
Yeah.
about.
Whereas in the reboot, when she gets the call back from like the police officer or whatever, it's like it's coming from inside the house.
Hey, when does that happen?
It happens in like the third act. It happens right before like the big kind of battle and the fight, where she has to go check up on the kids, and then like the kids are hiding in like the chest cabinet, and then she looks up.
The chest cabinet.
Yeah, they're hiding in like
Oh,
the
yeah,
chest
yeah.
or whatever.
Mhm.
Or yeah, they're just hiding in the chest, and then she looks up and like the stranger's there, but they don't even.
That's a good shot.
It's a good shot, but that beat is so kind of iconic. And then what was interesting in the reboot is that they don't even trust that beat, because after they reveal that the call's coming from inside the house, she like turns around and her blonde friend is dead in the bathroom, like with her. and like her phone's ringing all of a sudden, and like lights shining on her face. So it's like they just do like a beat on top of like a scary beat on top of a scary beat.
Yeah, it's like a very quick ramp up where it's like it didn't seem like they had enough faith in the first beat alone.
And keep in mind, like when this blonde friend dies, it is so ridiculous. Like we've already talked about how she just like kind of breaks in the house without any security alarms going off. And then when she leaves, she's walking outside and she just hears like spooky noises, but it's because it's like there's a storm coming and like branches are blowing.
Yeah.
So then she starts like running to her car,
well, that's the thing is
she's freaking out for no reason.
She's afraid, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what like she's afraid of, because she doesn't know that there's a killer on the loose. Like she doesn't know, she hasn't heard these reports. The killer's not really like that, like it's not really a concern for anyone. So when she's freaking out because of the storm, I'm like, what does she think, like there's Dementors out there or something?
And even more than that, once she actually like gets in the car, Dementors, once she actually gets in the car and she starts driving towards the gate, like a branch falls and it blocks her exit. But then I was looking at the gate and I was like, how did she even get into the gate to get into the driveway?
She had to get through the gate, the garage door, which fine was already open. And that's the thing, is like, it's not like she hopped the gate. No, her car was inside
of it. So it's very, I was kind of glad that she was dead. But it also felt very like irrelevant. It felt like it was just there to scare our protagonist even more. But
you've got to break it. It's like breaking and resetting a bone. It's like you've got to break a little bit when you're so limited in the plot. Essentially, you have to break it a little bit to get interesting things to happen.
And they could have used that to their advantage too, with this like whole best friend kissing her boyfriend thing, to where, you know, they establish in the high school scenes that the two of them are arguing and that they're fighting. And then maybe the blonde friend says before she goes to visit her, like to the other people, like, I'm just going to go visit her and we're just going to hash this out once and for all. And then maybe if that blonde friend dies earlier or sooner, then it becomes like, oh, like Camilla Bell or whatever. She's like, oh, people are going to think that I killed her. How did she die? You know what I mean? Like there could have been more mystery. Like you could have had her die earlier to kind of build up the tenseness of it.
Well, there's a lot more like other stuff happening. Like there are more calls in general in this one because like there are more plot elements working. But yeah, like that's you can't take a concept this simple and stretch it out to a feature-length film without filling it full of subplot. And like I feel like you're dinging it for that, and it's like, no, that's how you would handle an idea like this.
Well, they're also trying to have their cake and eat it, because
this is a decent this is an okay movie.
It's a good on paper, I would say. It's a good concept on paper.
I think it's better on paper, but it's okay in execution.
And then maybe I'll extend an olive branch to this, where I'll say I agree with you that it's probably paced a little bit better in this 2006 version. But then if I'm just looking at the 2006 version, and now we go back to, once again, what is happening before the first call, like this character Jill Johnson, like, what is she? She's walking around the house, like the parents, like the mom even says something to her before she leaves, where she's like, enjoy a movie and some food in the fridge, that's the best part. And like she doesn't get any of the food in the fridge. She doesn't know how to work like any of the TVs and stuff. Like what is she doing like the whole time up until that point? And I guess I'm bringing this up because if you're going to present to us just like a basic babysitter that's going to get harassed by a stranger and how they adapt in that situation, then I don't need backstory on the babysitter. I just need the babysitter and then how she adapts in the situation. And how she adapts will tell me more about the character than herself. But when you spend the first 20 minutes showing me a character that is essentially like the equivalent of a brick wall, where like nothing's happening with her, where she has no personality, and even when she's in this mansion, all she ever does is just go to the bathroom and put on like some rings. Like she doesn't and then she's just like reading books for like hours on end.
Yeah, it's
like I don't understand who this character is and why I'm supposed to care when she starts getting harassed.
The first act survives on this establishing the subplots. There's enough happening with the plot and all the different threads that they're going to put forth through Act 2. That we don't really get sidetracked by the fact that, she has no personality. Then when we're alone with her at the beginning of Act 2, that's when everything kind of falls apart, because we're reliant on her on the script developing her character. And nothing happens.
No, it's just a lot of shots of her walking down hallways.
There's so much established in this specific house. It's like a high-tech house with like an aviary in it, and like so many other elements. And this Jill Johnson does nothing but like flip through magazines and like go to like the parents' bathroom of all places, and like go through some of the jewelry, and she doesn't even like take anything.
Yeah. And, you know, like that whole scene where she's trying to find the cell phone for Rosa, the maid, and, you know, she doesn't know where Rosa's at, and she's like got a slow burn of like her car's there still, and, she's calling her cell phone, where's it coming from? You know, when she's walking down that hallway, like she keeps calling the cell phone, like it's just kind of BS horror movie tropes where just walk faster. Call the phone and walk faster. She spends the whole movie running when she needs to, but when she's just kind of investigating and searching, she's moving so slow. And it's like...
You gotta stretch it out.
Yeah, so there's not even like... It would have been more interesting if she was more proactive on the front half of it. So that way when she fights that stranger in the third act and she's trying to save the kids, maybe it feels a little bit more earned. But really, the whole second act is just kind of cliche and tropes of like, how do we make things spooky and how do we... keep it a thriller. And, Simon West even told Camille Bell, because Camille Bell wasn't originally going to be in this. They pitched this to Evan Rachel Wood to play Jill, which actually would have been interesting too. But she turned it down, and then Camila, how do you pronounce that? Camila? And then Camila Bell was approached, but then she turned it down as well. And then Simon West was like, well, listen, I know you don't want to be in like a cliche horror movie, but this is going to be more of a psychological thriller. And I would argue it's not really a psychological thriller. It's kind of just like shadows, and I mean, there's definitely a mystery in there, but I don't feel like the protagonist was psychologically like going crazy.
It's a psychological thriller in plot, but when you have a character who doesn't react in like any defined, like not even in a smart way, like in a defined way that like establishes like, like I said, a personality. It's just like because that's the thing is like, when it comes to a psychological thriller, so much of it is dependent on the character and how they specifically react to the situation happening around them. The situation is inherently interesting, but they couldn't find a character that was interesting to play with it.
Yeah.
And, that's what kind of is a little awkward about it, is because the character in 1979 wasn't particularly interesting either. The situation was just more interesting because it was more fast-paced and, happening just in a more interesting way, faster.
Yeah.
When it's spaced out like this, the character really has to like do a lot of heavy lifting, and there wasn't anything for Simon West to like build off of, and it didn't really seem like he had any intention of creating anything of his own either. How does she actually like defeat him?
She takes the fire pick and she like
stabs it through his hand.
Stabs it through his hand or something like that, and then she runs towards the door, and then when she gets to the door, the cop's there already. So yeah, it's really just the fire pick. It's it wasn't anything like it wasn't a callback.
It's set up. It is a callback.
They do the thing with like the fireplace in the TV where when she's using the remote earlier on, she hits the wrong button and it scares her. So then she does it later with because she throws the bottle of tequila that her and the blonde friend were gonna drink.
There's a lot of setup and callback.
I thought she was gonna use that to bash his head, but she misses horribly and throws it at the fireplace. But then
maybe that was her target.
Yeah, while she's getting choked out, she thinks of all this plan. Like, I'll throw the bottle of tequila at the fireplace, I'll turn on the remote, and then the fire will get Flanagan's back. But just these fight scenes, and like, she's 16 years old. You're an adult man. Like, come on. Like, you're not that intimidating if you can't even like grab her legs.
Well, to be fair, like, how many people did they say that this guy had killed?
Oh, and like in the ending with all like the news reports VO.
Yeah, like whatever.
Just they said like a lot.
Yeah, so this guy, so it's not like the original where this guy had only killed like the 2 kids. This guy's like a serial killer, and he can't overpower this fucking teenage girl.
Well, it's funny because they say like cat and mouse, but I just kept thinking of Tom and Jerry because he never actually catches them. Right. Is there anything else you want to talk about with this 1979? I mean, they were both somewhat...
I'm done with 79.
Or even like the 2006, because they were both somewhat financially successful, even though their Rotten Tomatoes scores are not very good. I mean...
Is 79 higher than 06?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 79 has like a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes. And then the 2006 only has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I honestly, real quick, I do want to talk about like actual like opinions on them. I thought the reboot was better.
Well, we can get into that when we kind of rank it too, or when we vote on it.
Oh, I forgot we were ranking it.
When we vote on it later. But yeah, we can just talk about like the box office a little bit. And the budget of the 1979 version had a budget of 1.5 million and made like 21 million at like the box office. And then I believe this 2006 version had a budget of 15 million.
Oh my god.
And it made 67.1 at the box office. So, I mean, they're both moderately successful financially. But I feel like a lot of these early horror movies that we do on Reboot Review do a good, especially from like the 70s and the 80s, they do a good job of like at least having interesting concepts and using the time in which they came out to their advantage. Whereas in 2006 is such a weird time to do this like phone thing because, like we said, cell phones and landlines, and I think you could do this in like 2020 and you could find a more interesting kind of like approach towards it. With like the limitations of like, yeah, if someone calls you and you don't like it, just block the number.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'd be funny cutting back to the stranger how he's like, ah, shit, he's got to keep getting new burner phones.
Yeah.
To like call her. He's just got like a box of burner phones. But yeah, I mean, I think it was due for a reboot, but it's kind of a missed opportunity because it just feels very like generic at the end of the day, even if it does handle the concept more, I don't know what you want to say, like more like to its potential than the 1979 version, right? Because 1979 just turns into, after the stranger calls, it's like, well, now let's follow the stranger for an hour. And it's like, I don't care about this guy. This guy is like...
I feel like they knew that Carol Kane was like the protagonist because that's why they come back to in the third act. Why would they just go away from that in the second act?
Well, they also, in the 2006 version, as far as like endings go, they do like a Carrie thing where she's in the hospital. And I thought this was real at first.
Very end,
she wakes up in the hospital, nobody's there. And you're like, oh, look, he's killed everybody in the hospital that he's going to call on the hospital phone. And then we find out that this is just a dream. So this is going to haunt her for a while, which is very similar to the Carrie ending, where...
I feel like it's a popular ending.
Oh, well, just like that this experience is going to like haunt you the rest of your life.
But... The at the end, showing that the main character hasn't truly escaped because they're having a nightmare of the situation.
I know, but
psychologically,
he literally gets like arrested at the end of the movie and gets taken away. But like he's like, and even Roy says it. He's like, we got ankle cuffs on him. We got like handcuffs on him. She's like, that's not enough. And it's like, it is, because you took him out so easily.
Yeah.
You literally everything he threw at you took him out. Like, so I mean, I guess the only difference between the stranger too is that he actually kills. Well, I said, and maybe this is where I was wrong, because I said he only kills the kids in the 1979 version. He doesn't kill anyone in the 2006 version. He doesn't kill the kids in the 2006 version, but he does kill Rosa, and he does kill the girl, the friend from Supernatural.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he does do some killing, but he doesn't like shred them to pieces with his bare hands like how he does with the kids in 1979. He puts Rosa under the water and puts a rock on her chest.
Yeah. Just drowns her.
Just drowns her, and then
like passively.
Do they really even explain how he kills the blonde friend? I mean, she's just dead, but I'm assuming he just choked her out.
I'm assuming choked her out, yeah.
So, I mean, in regards to horror movies, it's Halloween time. We're gonna have killers. We're gonna have killings. Let's look at our killers. And this guy is, what is he? He's just Scarface with his hands.
It does kind of seem like it. Just speaking of Rosa, it seems like a missed opportunity that like they didn't try to do something different with the killer while they were introducing all these side characters. Yeah. Like you kind of hinted earlier that the friend could have been the blonde friend could have been more of a threat, more of someone that was like openly in conflict with a Jill. And then you and I orchestrated like an idea where like Rosa was gonna like kill the kids and blame it on the babysitter because just she was like the family had like inadvertently poisoned her in some way, like slowly over time or something. I don't know, but like it's if you're there's two main issues with the reboot. One is the lack of main character. And there's just that scene where she's just in the bathroom just looking around and nothing's happening. I was like scratching, like anxious, because I'm just like, nothing's happening, what's going on?
Well, you said also
I got tense.
There's a lot of red herrings, and
they do some red herrings, but that's something they do right. The other thing they do wrong is that the subplots and the main plot are just completely isolated from each other. If you had they should have made they should have made the friend and made like red herrings themselves. They shouldn't have made the red herrings completely separate from anything that was interesting happening, because the subplots were interesting, they just didn't tie back in the end.
Well, the other red herring was the son that's in the guest house,
and they don't even like,
they don't do anything with that, and
he just like, it turns out he isn't there, it was just a killer the whole time.
Well, it would have been interesting if he was there.
I know, that's what they should have done.
She's like, "Oh my god, it's you," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And then he dies also.
Exactly, something like that.
But instead, she just goes over there, and I guess
or they make him a red herring. He was the killer the whole time. Like, he's like a creep. He's a weirdo.
Yeah, but no,
he's just not there. That would have been another actor they would have had to hire, and that would have raised the budget.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing else we really want to talk about this movie, we can go ahead and get into the voting on this first episode of 2021 Reboot Review.
Stop calling me, you
Listen to me. We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. Do you hear me? It's coming from inside the house. You need to get out of there right now. You?
And the first question is going to be, does it work as a reboot? And the way we kind of ask this question is, like, is it true to the original source material? Does it elevate it? Does it kind of make it its own? Does it make it a bigger world? Does it offer something new to the concept that kind of deems a worthy reboot? Now, you don't actually have to adhere to all those rules, but those are some things we definitely consider when we do that. And obviously the third question we'll get to, which is going to be, does it stand on its own? But as far as this first question goes, does it work as a reboot? Do you want to start, or do you want me to go?
I'll start. Yeah, I think it does. I think it's more true to the original urban legend than the first one is, at least.
I don't think this is an urban legend.
I'm almost positive it is, because it's in that
an urban legend is like the Candyman or the Boogeyman, or like, like,
well, I don't know what the like an urban legend has to have like a narrative. Like the Boogeyman is just like a monster. Like what's the legend?
I feel like that's more of an urban legend because it's like a legend.
I'm trying to think of like other urban legends. Like what about the Hook Hand? Like I
Know What You Did Last Summer.
No, there's like it's just like the generic urban legend of like the
crazy guy.
Do I have to explain urban legends?
I like how you say the hook hand. A crazy guy from a mental hospital has escaped. He's got a hook for a hand thingy where his hand should be, like from Community.
Yeah, that's what it's based off of. That's referencing an urban legend.
All right, just keep going.
Yes, because it all takes place in the house. It's about the babysitter. Like,
yeah,
I feel like I don't have to explain this too much.
I mean, I think it works as a reboot also, mainly because of everything you just said.
I don't know if it's better than the original.
I mean, it's better than the original just because it takes that concept and makes a movie about that. And when your movie's called When a Stranger Calls, and I'm talking about 1979 right now, and the only time he calls is in the first and third act.
It should have been called something else.
Yeah, After a Stranger Calls is what it should have been called in 1979. So, I mean, the title definitely is more earned in this 2006 version. So, I mean, I'll give it a check for does it work as a reboot, but just barely, because I mean, you also have to consider the execution of your concept, and just because you have a good concept that's worthy of a reboot doesn't mean like it is a good reboot. So it kind of is frustrating because even though it's okay, I feel like it still could have been a lot better, and that's going to come down to the writing, to the directing, to the performance, and overall to like, is it even scary? But this movie wasn't even like scary to some extent. It was more intimidating in the 1979 version because, like you said, it was just happening all so fast. Whereas in this one, it's like we're just watching, Jill like walk around the fancy house and like, look at things and, walk really slow and, Rosa, are you here? It's just like Simon West was directed on the day, and like the cam op was like, this shot's taken a really long time. He's like, yeah, we got to fill the time. It felt like they had to fill the time a little bit sometimes too with that. So we'll be generous and we'll say, yeah, that's 2 checks for does it work as a reboot. So the next question is it enjoyable / entertaining in its genre? It is, once again, the Halloween season. When we watch our horror or Halloween, our monster movies or whatever, there's certain elements that make something enjoyable / entertaining. It doesn't mean you have to hit all those beats, but we'd appreciate it if you hit some of those beats so we could, have a good time. And I'll start off this one, and I will say that it is not enjoyable / entertaining. Just because the concept is interesting, just because they are staying true to that concept. it doesn't mean that it's enjoyable or entertaining. I was pretty bored with this one, and I was often frustrated, specifically just like when she fights the guy at the end and she's just like kicking him off and stuff. And this whole thing with like the aviary, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I double checked it.
Yeah. But like the birds and like how it's like a rich house. Like I feel like this is
that was a good idea. It was just like, I thought it was actually pretty well used. But that's what's frustrating is there's some good things in the reboot that's like sprinkled throughout, and it's like you can give the original credit because everything that's good about it is concentrated in the first 20 minutes. This has about 20 minutes worth of good content in it. The reboot does. It's just spread out over the course of an hour and a half.
But it's almost like they make the house more advanced because they don't trust their own concept. Like it would have been more interesting.
That would have been fine if they had done more actually with it. They use it as a crutch, but it's not supporting anything. But that's if it had actually supported the plot, then it would have been nice.
I know, but what I'm saying is like it could have been more entertaining if she was just in a suburban house again, with like neighbors around her. She's in a rich neighborhood, but it's just like it's just a normal house. But instead, they do this thing where it's like, well, she's in a house, but now it's a really isolated house, and it's like a really
in Colorado,
and
with the mountains, and that's why the cell phone service never works,
and a big lake and stuff, and like it's a real tech savvy house, but they got like 6 remotes and stuff. But all you need is a babysitter, 2 kids with the flu that you're not going to check on, and you just need a guy calling you.
That's what you need for 20 minutes. That's what you're not understanding. For a feature,
they could have made a feature out of that. They could absolutely.
You say that so smugly.
I know that because if you even look at a movie like Halloween, like that is set in a suburban town. It's set in normal houses. And
it's not set in one house in one night with one stranger calling over the course of one night.
I know, but it's in one neighborhood.
Sure,
and like really, she only
have to take some liberties with the plot if you're going to fill it. That's what you're saying. They needed to take more liberties with the main plot, and what they did is they kept the main plot lean, but they added all this subplot around it.
Yeah,
it comes into that question of, is it loyal to the source material if you take the main plot and stretch it out too much?
Well, also,
it's safer to keep it lean.
What are you stretching? You're stretching your blonde friend coming over and like breaking.
That's the thing, is there is no blonde friend in the original.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the 2006 version, like what are you expanding out? What are you making more?
You can't expand anything. It's just separate subplot.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like they didn't trust their concept, so they just introduced all this other stuff. And I would argue that stuff is not enjoyable / entertaining. For those reasons, I give it an X.
I give it an X. Those things are enjoyable / entertaining, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't connect back. They don't build on each other. The subplots and the main plot, they're completely isolated, and they just fall on their own. Also, the protagonist sucks.
Yeah.
Not like, if she actually was like a bad character, like morally bad, and like I said, she just like taken some of the jewelry or just did something to give her like an angle.
Well,
it would have been something, but this is like,
well, her dad like grounds her or something at the beginning of that first act where he goes like, yeah, you're in trouble.
She used too many minutes on her cell phone.
Yeah.
there is nothing in like character motivation or like inner conflict.
Yeah. So, but
that's all there is to say about it.
It's not like she got in trouble at school and got suspended, and we see that she's like, maybe this is like kind of a risque babysitter to be like, looking after this like rich people's house because maybe she would steal their jewelry. There's none of that. It's just like she used too many minutes on her cell phone, and this is what she gets. Like, you wanted to talk on the phone? Well, now you're gonna talk on the phone for the entire second act, and it's just like, whatever. So it's gonna get an X for you too?
Absolutely.
All right. So that's 2 X's for is it enjoyable / entertaining. So the final question is going to be, does it stand on its own? When we do these reboot reviews, it's kind of similar to the first question, does it work as a reboot? But now it's, does it stand on its own? Could you watch this movie having never seen the 1979 version? Is it too reliant on the original, or does it contribute something new?
I feel like I have to say yes on this one because I did watch this movie when I was younger, and when I was younger, I did like it.
You watched it in 2006.
I watched it like around that time.
And you had a
I watched it when I was like in my like mid-teens.
Yeah. And
I was like, this is all right.
When you were babysitting.
Yeah, when I was babysitting, because that was something that I did quite frequently. That's the only if I was judging it now as an adult, then no. My answer would be no, but I literally have.
So what is it then? Is it a check?
Well, that's the thing, is I've proven myself wrong. I've in my innocence, it has been effective. So I can't say no, even though I want to. The answer has to be yes.
Oh my gosh.
It did work. It worked on me.
It worked on you when you were, what, 14?
When I was like 15.
Okay, but as a man...
And this was something I thought about, where I think they did this knowingly. I think they knew they didn't have to give the main character a personality as long as she was hot. And that, thinking back on how I perceived this movie when I was younger, yes, that was probably indeed the case.
Well, that's all you got to do, right? You just got to... And then they contrast that by...
It was successful.
Having the stranger have a scar on his face, and he's really ugly and scary, and it's like pretty versus ugly. Happy Halloween. I do not think it stands on its own.
But that's because you're watching it for the first time as an adult, right?
Absolutely.
I guess we should real quick say it was both of our first times watching the original.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, as I said, had seen the reboot like around the time it came out, and you have not. And
if I was gonna like tell people about 1979, I'd be like, you can just watch the first 20 minutes and maybe the third act, but you don't need to watch any of the second act, because that second act drags in 1979.
I wonder if the third act is good if you just skip the second act.
Yeah, you do, like,
because I didn't like the third act because the second act completely just threw me off.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like the third act, but I was glad we were
I was just relieved that we were back with Carol Kane.
But even if we're just treating this 2006 version just as like a standard horror movie, whereas, and I don't know anything about the 1979 version, I would say it's not even scary. Like, just because the concept is interesting, because she's getting phone calls from the guy and there's a little bit of a mystery, like, nothing is scary. Like, to the movie's credit, I thought they were going to do much more cat jump scares.
Yeah, the cat didn't have a jump scare.
There was like one little thing where she opens the door and it like runs past her feet, but it doesn't like jump.
It's not an attempted jump scare. Yeah, and it's just like a beat, like it's a release of tension.
Yeah, and there's not really any kind of jump scares. And even when she gets that phone call where he's like, "The call's coming from inside the house," and then she turns around and her friend is dead. It's just kind of like,
it's more like, oh,
okay,
what? Oh, her friend was, yeah, that's right, because she had been gone for like a long time.
Yeah,
the last time we saw her to the moment of her death, or the last time we saw her to the time we saw her body, I felt like 30 minutes had passed.
Yeah. There's maybe one cool shot, like when he's in the kid's bedroom and she looks up and he's just like looking down at her and stuff. But outside of that,
I think there's a few cool shots.
He's just not very menacing. He's not very scary, and like,
no, and he quickly becomes less and less menacing as like he actually tries to fight her and like loses more than half the time.
And he gives her that scary line of, she's like, "What do you want from me?" And he's like, "Your blood all over me." It just made me think of like...
Did he actually say that in the reboot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he said that just like in the 1979 version. But, it's just like... That just makes me think of like Scream and how much better Scream was when they did their whole phone call scene, and how much more intimidating, scary that guy sounded on the phone, which is Ghostface. But no, I don't think it stands on its own, because it's just not a scary movie for Halloween time, and the concept is okay, but they don't necessarily execute it well. So I don't know. So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be
3 and 3.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
1, 2.
I gave it 2.
1, 2 checks. XX. Oh shit. Oh no. So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be 3 checks and 3 X's. Oh no, which means that we can't give it a check or an X. This is going to be our first reboot that is going to go into reboot limbo. We've established that we have sequel limbo from the Back Again sequel podcast. But yeah, we couldn't come to a decision on it, so it's going to go into reboot limbo, and it's up for the people to decide. And it's going to just float around with Matthew McConaughey. And yeah, I mean, that sucks. I didn't know that's how we voted on this.
Did you think we were gonna say like no?
I thought it was gonna get an X.
Compared to the original, the reboot is a masterpiece.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of being, that's being a little generous.
The original is just so incompetent, from its characters to the way they shoot it, where just equipment is just in frame. Like, it is just one of the weakest horror movies I've ever seen, honestly, and like the most reliant on an idea that they don't even try to capitalize on, it seems like.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to be a wrap on When a Stranger Calls for our first episode back for Reboot Review of 2021. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned as we got 3 more horror movies that we are going to do on this list. And outside of that, make sure you like, make sure you give us a little click for a subscribe, make sure, you do all that stuff that people ask you to do with these podcasts. And if you don't, whatever. It's okay. Live your life. But outside of that, you got anything else to add, Drew?
She kissed me. I keep telling you that. I barely even remember it anyway.
Oh, wait, so you let her kiss you?
Please.
Later, Bobby.
Okay, everybody. We'll see you next week.